And there is yet more insecurity in Nigeria. In the southeast, there have been more targeted killings and shutdowns of entire cities. And in the northwest, more abductions of students, the latest in the series of what appear to be ransom-driven kidnappings. Let's start with the northwest and the Salihu Tanko Islamiyya School in Rafi local government area in Niger State. On Sunday, the school was overrun by about 70 armed men on motorbikes, and up to 150 students. We're hearing now about 136 believed to have been kidnapped. But a few hours later, 11 very small children were released, and that's believed to be because they were too young to walk. The school has students aged between 6 and 18. It's just one of many instances of insecurity around Nigeria. There have been nearly 1,000 students abducted in the country just since the beginning of this year. Well, to assess the worsening security situation in Nigeria and hopefully proffer some solutions to the problem, I'm joined now in the studio by the security analyst and former director at the Department of State Security, Barrister Mike Ejiofor, and by the program manager in charge of security and defense at the civil society group CISLAC, Salaudeen Hashim. And from our overflow studio, I'm also joined by the security analyst Vince Aniagolu, who is a former police officer with the London Metropolitan Police Force in the UK. Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Let me start with you, Mr. Hashim. Once again, more kidnappings carried out by so-called bandits who appear to have set their sights on school children. Tell us more about what you know of those abductions in Niger State, in the Islamic school.
Thank you very much for having me. I think it would be good to start off by saying that between December 2020 and today, we have had 6 different attacks.
6 sets of kidnappings.
Yes, with about over 800 students being taken, and this clearly tells you that there is a massive onslaught against schools. Only in the northwest we have actually recorded this number, and if you go into other regions, it means that the number it would be swelling by the hour. And for me, this is very fundamental. It is very fundamental because already this is a region where we have over 13.5 million out-of-school children. And these are ready-made recruits in the hands of any terrorist organization, banditry, terrorism, insurgency, and all of that. And this is, for me, also a potential opportunity to test the will of the regime to see how very responsive we can be. Unfortunately, that is not going to happen, and that will not happen because our policing system is very faulty. We heard that the group that took these children are the same group who did the Jangebe attack and took over 300 students. And yet again, because there is a lot of political economy in this particular industry, because it is actually an industrial scale kidnapping now. It has gone beyond just kidnapping for ransom and for money. Now it is industrial scale. And if you have noticed the pattern in recent times, you will notice that there is a copycat kind of approach between various groups and sets. Okay, this particular group would be doing it basically to be able to outrun and show supremacy back
like,
to...
wait a minute, this lot kidnapped 300 children. They got 800 million naira. So we better kidnap 500.
Yeah, in Kaduna, you saw that the school just paid, the parents paid about 180 million to also secure the release of their wards.
Yeah, that's the Greenfield
Absolutely.
University.
So it tells you very clearly that what we are seeing is a copycat kind of approach where groups are now, by their own sponsors, are now being run in such a way.
And that's one of the reasons why it's on
that is fundamental.
Okay, let me bring you in, Barrister Mike Ejiofor. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. 11 children, from what we hear, released because they were apparently too young to walk. And that sounds really worrying and disheartening, because you wonder how old they were to have been subjected to such an ordeal. I mean, 6-year-olds, extraordinary.
Well, as a security practitioner, if I tell you I'm not worried, that would be an understatement. I'm very worried, just like any other Nigerian. Now, we are talking of school children. What of assassinations? The school children, yes, it's now a franchise.
Well, some
like
of the school children were actually murdered.
Yes.
I mean,
so like you said, this kidnapping has now become a franchise. You know, a way of raising money. It has gone even beyond raising money. Like these children that were picked, you know, from Islamic school. So the question is, what are the intendments of these people?
You mean their motives?
Their motives.
Right.
What are their motives? Because it's gone beyond making money. It's gone beyond the religious crisis of Christian and Muslims. It's gone beyond political class. It's gone beyond social class. There is kidnapping. There's murder everywhere. Look at the way this man was gruesomely murdered. Ahmed Gulag.
Yeah, we're going to get to that in a minute, because I mean we're doing this systematically.
Yeah,
I mean we're looking at the whole security thing in Nigeria.
The picture is gloomy and very, very scary.
Right.
I must tell you.
Okay, let me bring in Vince Aniagolu. Thank you, Vince, for your patience. And Vince, a former police officer with the London Metropolitan Police. And these waves of kidnappings, Vince, clearly not slowing down. Is it your sense that the government has now given up when it comes to providing security, or are they simply just too overstretched?
Neither of those two, in my own personal opinion. Rather, the government do not totally understand what is actually going on. Why? What do I mean by that? You heard the government talk about unknown bandits. From unknown bandits, we've now moved to unknown killer headsmen. From unknown killer headsmen, we've now moved to unknown gunmen. And we've now moved to unknown kidnappers. Everything is unknown. So when the government of a society does not understand the criminals, that means there is no issue of detection of crime, they cannot deter crime, and they cannot disrupt crime. Because you need to understand who, what, where. But when there is no any kind of iota of knowledge about who these criminals are, so all we are having is unknown. And with unknown, we cannot have a known solution. So we have to continue going down the spiral of continuity. I'm sorry to say, it's gonna get worse. Read my lips again, it's gonna get worse. Until we see the government showing interest to understand who are behind this. You've heard so many times in this country when people in power will say, if we mention the names of people behind Boko Haram, most of us will shout. And it dies down. No arrest. Even those that are arrested, we don't see them publicly prosecuted as a deterrent. It's all secrecy. Even last week, the #1 man in security in Nigeria, Chief of Army Staff, died. The black box was picked up. After 1 week, there is no information about the black box. We know what a black box is. You cannot easily destroy it from that crash, but there's secrecy. So because of the secrecy, because of the unknown, we are not ready to get to the known. So it's not about the government not willing to do anything. They don't even know what's going on. And there are two kinds of people: those that make things happen, those that don't know what is happening, and those that don't even know what's going on. It's cluelessness. Sorry to say that, but I have to be honest with you.
Right. No. We appreciate your honesty, and stay with us, because we will come back and talk with you some more. But let me come to you, Salahuddin Hashim, because some we've got to look at this in the context of solutions as well. Some governors have talked about possibly reaching amnesty deals with these bandits and offering them jobs, opportunities, cars, money, that sort of thing. But others have said that this just encourages criminality. Where do you stand on that?
No, it does encourage criminality. I mean, we should borrow actually the Operation Safe Corridor program that is currently going on with reforming former terrorist combatants in that Safe Corridor program. And we noticed very clearly that half of those who were actually re-injected back into the society went back into the forest. So what exactly are the lessons? I think we should learn the art of drawing lessons. That is number one. Number two, Zamfara had also gone ahead to provide that sort of amnesty, and we noticed that it just didn't work. I think it is just simply failure of governance. If our problems are rural, and if we're able to localize the solutions, we might be able to deal with this monster that is confronting us. One is the fact that we need to be able to build grievance mechanisms at different levels, and we must also ensure that we deal very strongly with civil security relations, because to be very honest, what we need now is intelligence-led operations. We have just one police officer to over 100,000 Nigerians. Point. And for me, the ratio is very poor. You know, the United Nations has provided the ratio to be 1 to 1,000, but we have about 1 to 100,000. You can imagine
you got 300,000 policemen in a country of more than 206
million Nigerians.
Okay, I'm going to ask you to just stay with us, all of you, because we're going to come back and talk some more. You're watching the Arise interview. Plenty more still ahead as we continue our discussion about the rising problem of insecurity across Nigeria and what can be done about it. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Arise interview. I'm Charles Aniagolu, and as you might have heard, once again here in Nigeria, children have been kidnapped whilst in school. They were taken from an Islamic school in Niger State, at least 136 of them, students gone missing since Sunday, although some reports put the figure at about 200. The attack came a day after more than a dozen people kidnapped from a university in neighboring Kaduna State were released. Now, these kinds of abductions carried out for ransom have become increasingly common in northern Nigeria. In February, 27 students were abducted from the town of Kagara, and there have been at least 6 separate kidnappings of students in northwest and central Nigeria since December. So clearly the scourge of raids on schools here getting worse by the day. And with me in the studio, the security analyst and former director of the Department of State Security, Barrister Mike Ejiofor, the program manager in charge of security and defense at the civil society group CISLAC, Salahuddin Hashim, and from our overflow studio, the security analyst Vince Aniagolu, who is a former police officer with the London Metropolitan Police Force in the UK. Thank you very much indeed for staying with us. And let me come to you, Barrister Ejiofor. You've got contacts in the intelligence services. I mean, you were once an intelligence officer, so you might as well tell us what goes on in those intelligence circles. I mean, do we know who might have carried out this latest attack and how they go about trying to figure out who did? Because it surely would not have been Boko Haram, because their whole ideology supports Islamic education and Quranic studies, so they wouldn't be the ones, would they?
Well, they wouldn't be, but I think I have to be very cautious too in discussing some of these processes of intelligence, you know, so that we don't give out too much.
Yeah, but the problem is that there doesn't seem to be any intelligence at all. So what are you giving out? I don't understand. Because I mean, we're not seeing any solutions coming from your guys.
It's a delicate process.
Yeah.
And providing intelligence is not that difficult for the intelligence agencies. But what is difficult is the implementation of the end product of what was provided. That's where the problem is. The political will to implement some of these decisions reach that. Now, I'll give you an example. Even while in 2005, at least I was in India when we started anti-terrorism set up in the service. Then we didn't have all these challenges. And I know, even before I retired, the in-depth intelligence provided on the activities of Boko Haram, even when it started, to where it is now. But government doesn't seem to be implementing some of these policies provided. For whatever reason, I don't know. But I can assure you that there's no dearth of intelligence. Another problem the government will encounter, or the security agencies will encounter in terms of all these implementation of policies, is lack of technological backup. Now, you provide intelligence. What is difficult in installing drones to monitor when these people are coming, where they are going, their movement? I'm sure we'll have it. But because of corruption, some of these technological are acquired, substandard products are acquired.
So on the one hand, you're saying there is intelligence. On the other hand, you're saying there isn't intelligence because there is no technology to actually gather the intelligence.
So that is,
right.
If you see, there need to be collaboration between, it's not just the intelligence agency. The intelligence must be provided, but the implementers of the intelligence must also be in a position to implement.
Right, okay. Let me bring you in, Vince Aniagolu, in our overflow studio. I hope you've been taking all this in, because you yourself, of course, are a former police officer with the London Metropolitan Police Force in the UK, and you are quite conversant with intelligence and proper policing, if it can be called that. I mean, I don't know if you heard what Barrister Mike Ejiofor was saying there about the fact that there is intelligence and sometimes there isn't the will to implement the intelligence that's gathered. But on the other hand, he's also saying there is no technology to gather the intelligence. What are your thoughts?
Is there intelligence in Nigeria? 100%. There are intelligence in Nigeria. Are there intelligence agencies in Nigeria? 100% there are. What is the major challenges from my own perspective is the correct agencies that we are supposed to feed this intelligence to the police prefer to work with the military. The military has strategically taken the role of the Nigerian police, strategically, colorfully taking the role of Nigerian police. Right now, if you go to burial ceremonies, you will see military men at burial ceremonies. I don't know what they are doing there. You go to checkpoints, even before the Southeast crisis started, you see military men in checkpoints. They will chase cultists. They will chase any common criminal. There is this love, this passion to be a military officer, to protect the nation from external attacks, to secure our national borders. Go to our national borders. They are mostly porous. You don't feel the presence, the physical presence of the military. You don't see the physical presence of technology in those borders. What you see is our basic custom officers and immigration officers. So when the military left their role to do what they are not trained, what they are not structured to do, they now force themselves into the everyday policing duties as of a police officer. So talking about technology, can it play a role? It should, but trust me, because we've destroyed our moral values, if we bring technology into Nigeria's system today, they will abuse it because they found reasons to give reasons rather than use those things to work for us. We have become a reason, excuse-giving nation. So the bottom line is we need to look at what is the issue at the bottom line to start to clean up. Bring men that have passion to serve as police officers, as army officers, not because of quota system, not because of somebody said bring 200 names. Let them come and register because they want to serve the nation, not because there is no job, not because they've got no other source of income, so they choose to go to the military or to the police as a source of feeding their families. The passion, the love, the loyalty is not there. So deep inside us, we need to start to build that moral value. If you serve for the Queen, you know you want to serve. It's not out of hunger. It's just because you have the passion to save London, to save lives. But in Nigeria, it's about, do you know that at times you will see an off-duty police officer carrying a service pistol, an off-duty army officer carrying a service pistol? For what? To show off. They don't return their pistols back to the armory because there is no solution, there is no system, there is no regulators. Even though they're supposed to regulate the society, have abused it because of political interest. Today, the intelligence agency, the military, the police are more serving the president, not serving the society. not serving Nigerian constitution, not serving for justice and equity. They are serving those in political power corridors. So we got it wrong, and it wouldn't stop until we get it right.
Okay. We've got about a minute before we have to take a break. Let me bring you in, Salaudeen Hashim, because the bottom line with all of this insecurity, I mean, they've both analyzed it quite well, is that you get students being abducted, and their parents have to deal with it, and their parents telling reporters that they spent millions of naira paying ransom to secure their release, as well as having to give 10 motorcycles to the kidnappers. Is it important for parents or relatives of kidnapped victims to be open about how much they paid as ransom and that sort of thing? Is that a good solution?
Okay, yeah. Before I get into that question, is for me to quickly address the issue of information.
You've got less than a minute, so I'm going to have to interrupt you.
Oh yeah, so I'll do that. I think one thing that is very fundamental is that there are information everywhere in this country, but intelligence are very scarce. Yes, even security agencies pay for information, but how you process them is actually where the challenge really lies.
Right.
We have the RAN incidents where the NAF bomber dropped a bomb on an IDP camp, and the information they got was that it was a gathering of terrorist groups. So, and there are several other incidences like that we can quickly quote. And to the issue of parents making this very public.
Okay, I'm going to have to ask you to hold that thought.
Fantastic.
We'll come back to you and you'll finish it. You're watching the Arise interview. Plenty more still ahead as we continue our discussion about the rising problem of insecurity across Nigeria. We'll cast a closer eye on what's happening in the southeast. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Arise interview, where we speak to the newsmakers as well as ordinary people doing extraordinary things around the world and featuring the voices at the heart of the stories. I'm Charles Aniagolu. Now, if you were in any of the 5 southeastern states in Nigeria in the last 24 hours or so, you would have noticed that shops and schools were closed and streets deserted following a sit-at-home order by the separatist group, the Indigenous People of Biafra, or IPOB. That was the culmination of several days of violence in the region, with the killing of the former presidential advisor on political matters, Ahmed Gulak, in Owerri in broad daylight, and the assassination of a retired judge, Stanley Naji, on the streets of Enugu, also in the middle of the day. It's not clear who carried out the attacks. The police have blamed IPOB and its armed wing, the Eastern Security Network, or ESN, but both have denied that they were behind the murders. There's been a recent surge in attacks on police stations, courts and offices of the Election Commission in the southeast by unidentified groups. And with me in the studio, the security analyst and former director at the Department of State Security, Barrister Mike Ejiofor, the program manager in charge of security and defense at the civil society group CISLAC, Salaudeen Hashim, and from our overflow studio, the security analyst Vince Aniagolu, who is a former police officer with the London Metropolitan Police Force in the UK. Thank you for staying with us. And let me come to you, Salaudeen, because before we interrupted you, apologies, we had to take a break, but you were talking about the fact that whether it's important for parents and relatives of kidnapped victims to be open about the payment of ransom.
Because the information actually flows within the men of the underworld. Okay, I mean, these guys have networks, they interact, they communicate. Like we have established on this show earlier, we said they have a copycat approach in terms of how they carry out their operations. So the modus of operandi suggests that there are some kind of a borrowed pattern that is also applied between. So whether or not you come out to say it, these guys have those information in the background. So they will always know. And that always influences the way they they carry out their operations. And to be very honest, there are very strong elites. It's actually an elite capture of the society. There are elites who are behind this entire situation. And until the intelligence agency actually is able to decipher who these people are, we might just be running after those ragtag guys in the forest, but the actual guys that you need to neutralize are somewhere in the air condition in their rooms, cooling off and just watching the way the whole entire thing is playing out.
Yeah, but you have to wonder what happens when some of these people are actually arrested. See what I mean? Some of the fellows, don't they debrief? Don't they question them and interrogate them and all of that?
It is part of the poverty of the intelligence operations, because sometimes you listen to the interrogation, you will get so upset at the lines of questioning, because it is actually very faulty. That is one. The second thing is that if you ask the man whom you have just arrested, and the man says, look, we took a ransom of 100 million and I was given 20,000, that is the story that is relative that you find everywhere. So it's suggested that there are some people who take the bulk of the money. So they just pay these guys peanuts in the forest just to keep them ongoing, and somebody else
Right, okay. Well, let me move the conversation away from that to a growing problem in Nigeria, which is what is happening in the southeast. You, Barrister Ejiofor, called specifically for IPOB to be deprescribed as a terror group, as a way of paving the way for dialogue, because clearly you believe that dialogue is the way forward in that part of the country. Tell us more about your thoughts in that direction.
Well, before I come to that, just briefly, like you said here, the implication of announcing publicly the amount of money collected. There is always a go-between, and there are shortcuts. So when the people out of frustration come out openly to say this is how much we paid, it's going to cause more confusion within their circle, and to say they have been shortchanged. Either they give up, or they begin to deal directly with the people.
Or they fight each other.
And
hopefully do the job for the security
Exactly.
agencies.
So on the southeast, yes, I did call for the prescription of IPOB, because earlier in 2017, when IPOB was to be prescribed, I warned of the dire consequences of prescribing IPOB, because what it will amount to is that the leadership will go underground and there's nobody to hold responsible. That's exactly what is happening now. Now, IPOB was saying, we don't know anything about this. You can't blame them, because government has not also been able to pinpoint and say, these are people behind. You see discordant tunes. Some governors saying they are politically motivated, some people say they are people imported. So there's no consensus on the people who are behind this.
Nevertheless, and I don't mean to interrupt you,
yes,
if you look at what happened in Northern Ireland, which was another place where the protests and everything were politically motivated, if you look at that, you'll see that even though there was a connection between Sinn Féin, which is the political arm, and the IRA, I mean, you don't go to Sinn Féin and say to Sinn Féin, well, you did this. Because Sinn Féin will say, well, we didn't do it.
Exactly.
And in this case, you've got IPOB, which you could argue is the political wing, and you've got ESN, which is the armed wing. That does not necessarily mean that there isn't something going on within those circles.
Now, so the issue now is, this is a political problem, and it needs a political solution. Now, IPOB has been proscribed as a terrorist and designated as such as a terrorist organization. And government cannot engage a terrorist organization in a dialogue. So what we need now to do is government to look for political solutions, going behind the scene, deprescribe IPOB, look for leadership, the leaders of the Southeast, genuine leaders of the people who mean well for the Southeast. Engage these young men who have not witnessed the war. I witnessed the war, and no country survives a second civil war. The way we are going, if care is not taken and government does not handle it, we are going into full-blown civil war. And when it gets to that stage, where nobody is held accountable, people are being shot in the broad daylight, you cannot move out freely.
But the problem is that there's so much trust that has been broken between this particular government and some of those people not just in the southeast, but across Nigeria.
Yes.
I mean, so much trust has been broken that it might be difficult to see how they would have any confidence in dealing with that sort of government.
Yeah,
so you may have to be looking at a possible future government
you see,
after 2023.
there are known areas of discontent, very well known, pronounced areas of discontent. So government should start.
Yeah, but the government isn't going to say one of the areas of discontent is the lack of appointments, blah blah.
Exactly.
But they're not going to say, okay, we're going to remove all this lot and install these other people.
No. You don't need to remove all of for the appointments that have been made, like those fresh appointments. You don't need to remove them. But there are other ways you can placate the people.
Okay, let me bring in Vince Aniagolu. Thank you for your patience, Vince. You are, of course, an intrinsic part of this discussion, and I presume you heard Barrister Mike Ejiofor there talking about a possible solution to the problem in the southeast being to de-prescribe IPOB. Is it particularly difficult to de-prescribe a group, especially if there is a sense, and certainly the government has made that sense public, that it feels that that group is part of a group that is carrying out killings and attacks in the southeast, because they were in fact prescribed before those attacks began. They were protesting peacefully. So how can you now justify de-prescribing them when they've raised the level of their operations or are alleged to have raised their level of operations?
I am totally against any sort of terrorism. I'm totally against any act of violence, whether be it from the IPOB or from the ESN or from the Boko Haram or from the new almighty ISWAP that have claimed to take over Boko Haram because they have a broader network to even attack more Nigerians. I am against any sort of violence, call it killer headsmen, unknown bandits, unknown gunmen. I'm totally against them. At this point, if you're talking about the Southeast, for example, I've been in the Southeast. I just came back to Abuja recently. Now, apart from the issues that you talked about that happened in the Southeast over the weekend, the killing of our late Gulak, may he so rest in peace. Just last night, Professor Obioma was also killed or died, whatever it is, in Minna, Niger State. And people are asking questions. Is it like a retaliation? We don't know. Same last night, a retired AIG of police, Christopher Diga, was also killed in Jos, Plateau State, by unknown gunmen in Jos, by unknown gunmen in Minna. So the issue of unknown gunmen has become a common denominating factor to commit crime in Nigeria because the people in power have refused to show transparency in dealing with criminality. So if you have to deprescribe IPOB, I think, as you said, is there trust? There is no trust because people in power have shown they have this love to abuse trust because they believe they can use boots and men with rifles to oppress and suppress the people. Before I conclude, look at the arrest of the people that killed Mr. Gulak. Nobody was arrested. They were all gunned down. The vehicles that are supposed to be the vehicle of oppression were all burnt down. Now, if you arrest people as a former serving officer, we arrest people that to the extent that we arrested will be demeaned that we've done a wonderful work. You have to even give us a high five that, guys, you got me red-handed. Because you need to do your investigations properly. Now we have what we call the HSMS in Nigeria. Very new term. The Hybrid Spectrum Monitoring System. The Minister of Communication, Pantami, was given about 750 million naira in October last year by the FEC to bring this new hybrid spectrum monitoring system. It's a wonderful system. Your telephone conversations can be captured. Your radio frequencies can be captured. How come this HSMS is not working in the Southeast? Because the reason he was paid 750 million was that the Southeast has no monitoring regulatory system to monitor the radio frequencies in the Southeast. He was given that money, not going through the National Assembly. Now, where is that technology? We'll be talking about technology. So about the proscribing IPOB, there is need for them to have conversations. We don't need another war. What we need is dialogue, understanding. Obasanjo's carrot and stick movement. But the bottom line is we have technology, the HSMS, it's not working. We have different things, it's not working. So whatever they have to do to make it work, they should start doing it now.
Okay, let me bring you in. You're always at the tail end of these things. We've got to take another break shortly. I apologize for that, Salahuddin Hashim. But you've heard what is being said. On the one hand, deprescribe IPOB as a way of carrying out negotiations. On the other hand, whether or not, even if you deprescribe them, they're going to trust the government. What are your thoughts on that?
You did a non-kinetic approach to dealing with this, and to actually demonstrate sincerity in your non-kinetic approach. First of all, you need to demobilize the over 1,350 roadblocks that you have in the Southeast as a way of demilitarizing the process and ensuring that you allow for some sort of space, because you need safe space for dialogue. And then people can see some moves.
So that would be a first gesture.
That's the first gesture.
Right.
Then secondly, you now need to look at new opportunities that present itself. To be very honest, the president lost an opportunity to unify the country with the appointment of the chief of army staff. It is a potential opportunity.
Okay, we've got to take up another break. Stay with us. You're watching the Arise interview. Plenty more still ahead as we continue our discussion about the rising problem of insecurity across Nigeria. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Arise interview. I'm Charles Aniagolu. Today we are focusing on escalating insecurity and violence in Nigeria and what appears to be the gathering strength of separatist movements in the country. In the southeast of Nigeria, the indigenous people of Biafra, or IPOB, is gaining prominence. They are a proscribed group that advocates an independent state in that part of the country. In January, the group launched an armed security unit known as the Eastern Security Network, or ESN. The aim was to push back on Fulani herders who are often blamed for communal clashes in the region. But the Nigerian authorities consider ESN to be subversive, and troops have cracked down on the armed group in states where it is active. Analysts say the perception of political marginalization and the feeling that the country is not structured to serve their interests are to blame for the rise of these separatist movements in Nigeria. And they predict that agitation by these movements will likely increase as the country heads towards presidential elections in 2023. And with me in the studio, the security analyst and former director of the Department of State Security, Barrister Mike Ejiofor, the program manager in charge of security and defense at the civil society group CISLAC, Salahuddin Hashim, and from our overflow studio, the security analyst Vince Aniagolu, who is a former police officer with the London Metropolitan Police Force in the UK. Thank you very much indeed, gentlemen, for staying with us. And let me come to you, Barrister Mike, because you had mentioned a few years ago, almost prophetically, that Operation Python Dance is something that would lead to a deterioration of not only relations between the security forces and the people, but a worsening of the situation. And that appears to have come true.
Yeah, that was about 2017. And somebody sent it to me yesterday on my interview with another TV station in 2017. In intelligence, it's just a threat estimate or analysis. You follow the trend. Now, every month, the State Security Service, as an intelligence service, provides threat analysis. What are you expecting in political front, economic front, social front, or labor front, for government to work on? So it's just that I looked at the consequences, because as at that time, IPOB was not violent. They were just busy carrying their flags, we want Biafra and all this, There was no serious attention to it. But when the government descended heavily, through the court though, to prescribe IPOB, because the legal process was so we must take note of that. The legal process was followed and it was prescribed. I foretold that this was what is going to happen, and that's exactly what is happening. And if we don't handle it now, to look for a peaceful resolution of the conflict, we'll definitely see ourselves.
Okay, well, you see, you were prophetic in 2017. It came true. You had Operation Python Dance at the time.
Yes.
Now you've got Operation Restore Peace. Different terminology, but the same high-handed tactics?
Now, Operation Python Dance, in the first place, like I did say then, is not conciliatory. The python conscripts its victim before it swallows. So
it suffocates them and then
so,
gobbles them up.
Yeah. Now, what we're talking about, restore hope. Yes, that is good. But how do you restore? Do you restore hope by
Restore
going up
peace.
in arms? Restore peace,
Right.
going up in arms? That's good. The only way to resolve this matter is dialogue. It's a political problem we are facing, and it must be resolved politically. That's my position.
Okay, let me bring you in, Vince Aniagolu, in our Overflow studio. How did things degenerate to this level? I mean, we've seen Ahmed Gulak shot and killed in broad daylight in Owerri. We've seen a retired High Court judge, Stanley Naji, dragged out of his car in broad daylight and summarily executed by unknown gunmen in the east. We've heard the other people you talked about who had just been killed in the last 24 hours or so. The police say it's IPOB, killings captured on camera. IPOB say it's not them. How did things get this bad in the southeast?
Honestly, how things got back in the southeast is basically because of lack of trust building. It's because of the lack of the effort to win the heart and the minds of the people. When you want to do this, you need to win the hearts and the minds of the people. Currently, if you look at video clips coming out from the southeast, you could clearly see the video are showing that the people seem to be on the side of these unknown gunmen. We've seen video clips when people were actually cheering them on. You've seen video clips when they tell people, we are not after you, we are not going to hurt you. I think how we got this bad is because of high-handedness. How we got this bad is because of the failure of the NSAS protest and the issue of the review panel set up across the country to address the issues of security abuse, oppression, extrajudiciary killings. A lot of youth of Nigeria felt like the government has left them behind. So how we got this bad is because the people in the corridors of power have forgotten those that voted for them. It got this bad because there is no passion, there is no compassion for the vulnerable.
Vince, I'm going to leap in with both feet there. I apologize for interrupting you, but you made some very interesting points where you said that there have been videos coming out of the southeast where people are cheering on these armed gunmen. I mean, who would want Ahmed Gulak and retired Judge Stanley Naji dead? I mean, why would anybody want to cheer people on, who are shooting them down in the middle of the street in broad daylight?
Let me answer this. Thank you for that question. Now, based on my own personal assessment or investigation, the late Ahmed Gulak has a record in Imo State. You may know that he was the chairman of the APC primaries, gubernatorial primaries in Imo State in 2019. And he has a record of issues between him, the APC, current governor Hope Uzodinma, ex-governor Rochas Okorocha. They have these shenanigans that is between three of them. So whatever happened to him, may he so rest in peace. Nobody should relate that to the Igbos. Nobody should relate that to the people of Imo State. The APC, Governor Okorocha, Governor Hope Uzodinma should go inside and solve their internal problems. Because of the crisis in the past APC primaries in Lagos State some few weeks ago, they should go back and solve the issue of violence. They should leave the Igbos outside the issue of Gulak's death. Because a lot of people in the north that are not well experienced are thinking otherwise. Listen, in terrorism, terrorists want to use every news to make themselves look bigger than they are. So it would have been cheap and easy for the IPOP or the incessant to claim that they killed him. But they said, we did not kill him. We don't even know where he's coming from. Remember when this bandit kidnapped people in Kangara, in Katsina, they said that, Boko Haram said that we did it. But whereas the minister Lai Mohammed said they did not do it. So terrorists would have loved to claim the death of Gula, but they said we did not do it. And if you look intrinsically, there is an issue in APC about the gubernatorial primaries of 2019. So people should not focus on the Ndibo or the Easterners. They are not involved in the death of Gula.
Vince, thank you very much indeed for that clarification. We've got about a minute left. So you started this discussion. We're going to leave you to end it, and elapse. We're not just giving you half a minute. Do you think that the government needs to change its thinking about insecurity so that it understands that it needs to protect citizens by preventing insecurity from occurring in the first place rather than reacting to insecurity after the fact?
Absolutely. There's a need to strengthen and review existing rules of engagement, look at regulations within the security agencies, and of course see how they are related with civilians and community. In most cases, the high-handedness of security agencies have always pushed citizens and people deeper into terrorist
and that was what partly led to things like the NSAS protests and so on.
So it is very important to review that, adopt a new measure that would help.
Okay, I want to thank you, all of you, very much indeed. Salahuddin Hashim is the Security and Defense Manager at the civil society group CISLAC. Barrister Mike Ejiofor is a security analyst and former director at the Department of State Security. And the security analyst Vince Aniagolu, who is a former police officer with the London Metropolitan Police Force in the UK. Thank you ever so much. That's it for this edition of the Arise interview. Join us again tomorrow. From me and the entire team here in Abuja, bye-bye and thank you for